Listen, I could do a long intro on the history of the draft or on the significance of the first overall pick, but instead, I want to try to do something different with this video, just hopping right into it. So, with that being said, this is what's happened to every MLB first overall pick since 2000, with a corresponding letter grade for each from A to F. We start first with 2000, Adrian Gonzalez. Very rarely do 1-1 picks get traded before they debut with the team that picked them, but that's exactly what happened to Agon. The Marlins pulled the trigger in July 2003 so they could obtain bullpen help in the form of Ugueth Urbina from the Rangers, who wasn't doing so well at the time, but with the Marlins, he went 3-0 with the 1.41 ERA, and the Fish went on to win the World Series. But Adrian would go on to soar to so much greater heights than Urbina ever could. But not immediately. With the Rangers for parts of 2 seasons, Gonzalez posted a combined OPS plus of just 71. He seemed more and more like a bust, so the Rangers moved him to the Padres, where El Titan became a star. Over 5 seasons with the team, he hit 161 homers and drove in 501 runs, while posting an OPS plus of 141, nearly double his Rangers output. Then he was traded to Boston before the 2011 season, soon after signing a huge 7-year, $154 million extension. After just a year in Beantown, he was shipped off again to LA. With the Dodgers, Gonzalez helped LA win 5 straight NL West titles while racking up 101 home runs along the way, 2 top 20 MVP finishes, a Gold Glove, and a Silver Slugger award, before moving on to spend one last mediocre year with the Mets. With cumulative totals of 317 round trippers, 1,202 RBIs, a 287 batting average, a 129 OPS plus, and a career WAR of 43.5, El Titan is no less than an inner circle member of the Hall of Very Good. He gets an impressive grade of A on our scale. 2001, Joe Mauer. Not only was Joe Mauer the best high school baseball player in the draft, he was among the best high school quarterbacks in the country. He even had an offer to play for Bobby Bowden at Florida State, where he could also play for Mike Martin in baseball. His hometown Twins had the first pick and had to sweeten the deal enough for Mauer to even sign. They did so successfully, and so started one of the most successful careers in Minnesota sports history. The hometown kid went on to become one of the greatest catchers of MLB's modern era, as between 2006 to 2013, Mauer won 3 batting titles, 3 Gold Gloves, an MVP award, while posting an OPS plus north of 130 6 times. Few catchers have ever hit and defended as well as prime Mauer. Sadly, a string of concussions beginning in 2013 derailed his career on the back end, but regardless, his lifetime numbers were good enough to get him elected to the Hall of Fame on his first ballot, thanks to everything we mentioned before, coupled with a career B-WAR of 55.2. How could he be anything less than an A+?
I want to ask you a question. What's the most stressful part about buying baseball tickets for you? For me personally, it's not knowing necessarily what all the fees are going to be until right at the very end, so I can't really trust any price I see, and not really knowing where the seats exactly are in the stadium. The posted location's only so helpful. That's exactly why I've been using today's sponsor, Game Time, to find the best deals for myself for years now. From those baseball games to concerts to even hockey games, I've trusted Game Time for a long time now to help me find not only the best deal, but the place that I'm actually going to be able to see the event that I'm going to see. I also love how their recommended seats feature that are a good price is actually pretty accurate in comparison to some other services. I literally was scanning through the app earlier today, looking to buy some Angels tickets. So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. First step is to download the app, create an account, and then use code MTC for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code MTC for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to our video.
2002, Brian Bullington. Usually pitchers taken first overall have especially explosive stuff, but Brian Bullington was never that kind of pitcher. He'd gone 15-0 as a senior in high school, but that led to him being just a 37th round draft pick. Bullington then went to Ball State and made the All-American team. He was 6'4", 210, fully looking the part of 1-1 pick. He then struck out 139 batters in 105 innings as a senior. It was enough for the Pirates to select him over pitchers Zach Greinke, Matt Cain, Cole Hamels, Joe Saunders, and Scott Kazmir, all of whom were taken in the first round and later became All-Stars. In the minors, Bullington held his own early, but by the time he got to AA and then AAA, he was fanning fewer than 7 per 9 innings, while giving up nearly a hit per inning. Not really that encouraging. By the time he got to Pittsburgh in 2005, he was already damaged goods, courtesy of a torn labrum. He appeared 1 game, and then had a surgery he never really recovered from. He bounced around the minors a bit, and then Japan until 2015, officially ending his playing career with an MLB record of 1-9 with a 5.62 ERA. Even if he'd managed to stay healthy, it's doubtful his diminished stuff would have played up well enough to stay and produce in the bigs. This has to be our first F, as the Pirates literally had a crop of young pitching talent to pick from, and ended up missing badly. 2003, Dumb & Young. The last time the Devil Rays had a first overall pick was just 4 years earlier, when they took a player thought to have generational talent, Josh Hamilton. Much happened between then and Hamilton making his major league debut almost a decade later, but suffice it to say, he never appeared in a Tampa uniform. Given another chance, they again selected a toolsy outfielder whose brother, Dimitri, had also been a first-round pick. Delman Young seemingly had every attribute a team could want in a young star, except the right attitude. He started his career well, winning Rookie of the Year in 2007 by hitting .288 with 13 homers and 93 RBIs, before not really performing up to these levels the next couple seasons. Eventually, the Rays shipped him out to the Twins for Matt Garza and Jason Bartlett, and went on to appear in the 2008 World Series without either him or Hamilton. From here, besides a standout 2010, Young would never post much more than pedestrian numbers, finishing his career with a WAR of just 3.2. He definitely had some highlights along the way, however, like finishing 10th in MVP voting in that aforementioned 2010 season, or registering huge moments in the postseason with both the Tigers and the Orioles. Overall, though, he struggled to maintain his weight and produce consistent production, leading me to a C rating. Not a bad career by any means, in fact, a lot more than most guys get, but not an astounding one either, especially for a first overall pick. 2004. Matt Bush. Matt Bush didn't just have an attitude problem in his early career, he had a criminal record. He was an incredibly talented player who probably deserved to be picked first, by his hometown team no less, the Padres. But this is, in many ways, the anti-Joe Mauer story. Hometown kid breaks bad. Weeks after the Padres drafted him, Bush was arrested on suspicion of felony assault, misdemeanor trespass, disorderly conduct, and underage drinking, brawling with bouncers who were kicking him out of an establishment. Things would get even worse though. There were injuries, a broken ankle and a torn UCL. Along the way, he couldn't seem to prove his ability to hit, so the Padres converted him to a pitcher, where he could touch 98. He would end up getting traded to the Blue Jays in 2009, but at the end of spring training, he threw a baseball at a woman's head while at a party. Then came a DUI bust. He didn't emerge again until 2010 in the minors with the Rays, who promoted him to AAA by 2011. Then, during early 2012, he was drunk driving again and ran over a 72-year-old man. The end? For most people, almost certainly. But for Bush, nope. After a prison sentence, he set about trying to fix himself and his broken reputation, and did so effectively enough to catch on with the Rangers as a reliever. By 2016, he was in the big leagues with Texas, and he flourished early, going 7-2 with an ERA of 2.48. He then registered a successful postseason. Bush's career would have a number of ups and downs following this, but he nonetheless ended up going 12-11 with an ERA of 3.75 in his MLB playing days. Respectable numbers, surely. He also struck out 9.7 batters per 9 innings before retiring in 2023. As he did end up making an impact at the big league level in a meaningful way, I can't justify giving him an F. But since it was as a reliever more than a decade after he was drafted, and it was for less than 250 career innings, I would say a D- is warranted. 2005. Justin Upton. One of the true no-brainers at the time, BJ's younger brother was the best power-hitting prospect in the game, and by 2007, at just the age of 19, Justin was in the bigs to stay, playing for the D-backs. Like his brother, he was a converted shortstop who moved to the outfield. For his career, he would earn over $173 million, but never managed to appear in a single World Series, never hit 40 homers in a season, and got MVP votes in just 5 out of 16 campaigns. For who was seen as a generational talent, this was a bit disappointing to some, but maybe those expectations, as they often are, were a bit unfair. 4 All-Star appearances, 3 Silver Sluggers, and 8 seasons where he hit over 20 homers is certainly nothing to sneeze at. Overall, he was more of a solid player prone to streakiness year in and year out than one of the game's true elites, but that's still respectable nonetheless. He finished his career with 325 homers and a WAR of 32.3. Injuries slowed him down toward the end, as he was done by the age of just 34, but he still accomplished more than 99% of MLB players. Relative to his expectations pre-draft, I would say this lands him at a B+ grade. 2006. Luke Hochevar. Hochevar had been drafted twice before, in the 37th and 40th rounds, but didn't explode until his junior year at Tennessee, when he went 15-3. He was SEC Pitcher of the Year. In post, it's easy to note the glut of pitching talent that went right after him, including Andrew Miller, Tim Lincecum, and Max Scherzer, not to mention a high schooler named Clayton Kershaw, but this selection was seen as a solid one at the time. Hochevar went on to play for some truly bad Royals teams, but part of the reason they were so bad, at least in some measure, was because he was. As a starter, he was unplayable, giving up over 10 hits per 9, putting his overall whip close to 1.5 in both 2008 and 2009. This came with a cumulative ERA of around 6. Lots of traffic and not much swing and miss to go with it, as he struck out just around 6 per 9 over the same period. As if this wasn't bad enough, by 2012, the wheels had truly come off when he gave up a major league leading 118 earned runs in 185 innings pitched, while surrendering 202 hits along the way. He was converted to a bullpen arm following and had a breakout 2013 before suffering a torn UCL. He would come back to put up back-to-back decent seasons in 2015 and 2016, winning a World Series in the process. But still, he'd finish his career with just a WAR of 3.7. This is similar to Bush, but without a lot of the character issues. However, he also wasn't nearly as dominant as Bush was as a reliever outside of a good 2013. As such, I would only give him a marginally better grade of D+. 2007, David Price. This time, the Rays got their pick right. They found a future ace out of Vanderbilt, who would go on to team up with the first-round pick of the previous year, Evan Longoria, to permanently change the destiny of a once hapless franchise. It was fitting that Price was on the mound in 2008 when the Rays vanquished the Red Sox in the ALCS to go to their first ever World Series. Price would become something of a postseason fixture, appearing every year between 2008 and 2018 except for 2009 and 2012, during which the latter was ironically Price's best year, when he finished 20-5 with a sub-2.6 ERA and won the Cy Young Award. But in 2014, the Rays were under 500 and needed to look forward. They weren't signing Price for the money he'd get as a good lefty starter, so they shipped him off to the Tigers for a young Willie Adames and Drew Smyly. Then came stops in Toronto and Boston, where he won a World Series in 2018 after signing a 7-year, $217 million deal in 2016. In 2020, he was dealt with Mookie Betts to the Dodgers for Alex Verdugo, Connor Wong, and Jeter Downs. He then put up decent numbers for the Dodgers, mostly out of the bullpen, before officially retiring at the end of the 2022 season. He went 157 and 82 during his playing days with a 3.32 ERA in 14 years, along with the career 123 ERA plus and 2,076 strikeouts in 2,143 innings. Needless to say, it was a slam dunk result for Tampa. As such, he, like Agon, gets an A rating. 2008, Tim Beckham. The Rays were surging in 2008 and yet still had the first overall pick of that draft as well, their third just since 2000. This had the chance to cement them atop the AL East for years to come if they just draft that year's clear #1 player, catcher Buster Posey of FSU. But they didn't. They took a high schooler from Georgia, Tim Beckham, mostly because he was affordable and wouldn't rake them over the coals for a signing bonus. And oh, would they go on to regret this decision. Beckham wasn't a bust on the level of a Bush or Bullington, but also certainly never put up numbers worthy of a first overall pick. His career WAR ended up being identical to Delman's at just 3.2. He had decent individual seasons, like in 2017 when he hit 22 homers and drove in 62, posting an OPS plus of 110, but what Beckham wasn't, however, was Posey, who put up a WAR of 41.8 between 2010 and 2019, while all Rays catchers combined were at just 8.7. Posey also won 3 rings with the Giants. He'll more than likely be a Hall of Famer someday, and Beckham never even reached 100 career homers, falling far short of this mark at 63. This was certainly a bad miss, but not the worst career posted by Beckham, as he did spend over half a decade in the bigs. As such, I think this deserves a C-. 2009, Steven Strasburg. From here, it was as if the skies parted. After the next 4 drafts, the first overall was a transcendent talent who, at least for stretches, lived up to the billing. First came Steven Strasburg, a dominant pitcher who no one disputed would be taken first overall by the Nats. They didn't overthink it or try to go cheap. They pointed up and immediately got electric stuff. Strasburg had been undrafted out of high school because he hadn't taken conditioning seriously until he got to San Diego State. There, he harnessed his potential and became a beast on the mound, reaching up to 102 miles per hour with his fastball. He would go on to strike out 14 in his raucous 2010 MLB debut before being impeded by Tommy John surgery that ate up most of his 2011, and in 2012 he was put on an innings limit that shut him down in September and kept him off the Nats playoff roster. But regardless, between 2013 and 2019, Strasburg would certainly live up to his #1 overall pick status, posting a FIP below 3.5 every year but one while K-ing nearly 11 batters per 9, and finishing top 10 in Cy Young voting 3 times. To top it all off, he won the World Series MVP in 2019, going 5-0 cumulatively in the postseason, becoming the first #1 overall pick to win the award. Injuries curtailed the rest of his career, limiting him to just 8 starts after this, but his peak, which ended up resulting in a championship, can't be simply ignored. Neither can his 1,723 strikeouts in just 1,470 innings, or 127 ERA+. He, like Upton, gets a B+. 2010, Bryce Harper. Arguably no high school player has ever been more hyped than Bryce Harper, who appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was just 16, even being compared to LeBron as the future face of baseball. He then bypassed his last 2 years of high school to play at a JUCO. This resulted in him being selected first overall by the Nats when he was just 17, a rarity for stateside players. By just 19, he was in the show to stay, and putting up one of the best seasons ever by a teenager, posting 5.2 WAR and winning Rookie of the Year in the process. The next couple seasons were a bit rocky, but by 2015, he was among the best players in the game, winning his first MVP award with a season for the ages, leading his league in runs scored, homers, OBP, OPS, OPS+, and WAR. A few years later, the Phillies inked him to a staggering deal of 13 years, $330 million to bring him to the city of brotherly love for what will more than likely be the rest of his playing days. He won a second MVP in 2021 and has basically been an elite hitter every year since he's arrived, even fighting through Tommy John in 2023 to post impressive numbers. If he can continue his current pace, it'll be hard to see him as anything but a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's why he gets our second overall A+ right alongside Mauer. 2011, Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was a first-round pick coming out of high school in 2008, but he didn't sign with the Yankees and instead went to UCLA, where he continued to develop his power arm alongside Trevor Bauer. Then, the Pirates took him with the 1-1 pick and signed him with an $8 million bonus. Then, in a manner similar to both Strasburg and Harper, Cole largely lived up to the hype that comes with being first overall. He first helped lead the flailing Pirates into the postseason in both 2013 and 2015, when he went 19-8 with a 2.60 ERA. But as he neared free agency in 2017, the Pirates started shopping Cole, just as the Rays had with David Price. Ultimately, Garrett was sent to the Astros and somehow reached an even higher level than he had before, adding velo and, somewhat controversially, spin to all of his pitches, becoming one of the best pitchers in baseball in the process. In 2019, he led MLB with an ERA plus of 185 along with a 20-5 record, 326 Ks in 212 innings, and an ERA of 2.50. That offseason, he got paid to jump to the team that had once drafted him before in the first round in NY, at 9 years, $324 million. He's largely lived up to the billing there as well, even posting a Cy Young Award-winning season in 2023 when he led MLB with a whip of 0.98 while going 15-4 with a league-leading 165 ERA+. Assuming he stays healthy, Cole should remain productive into his late 30s based on his conditioning and savvy pitching ability alone. More than likely, with the shifting landscape we're seeing for pitchers, he'll be bound for Cooperstown when it's all said and done. As such, this is another A+. 2012, Carlos Correa. By the time Carlos Correa was 11, he was being flown around to play travel ball all over the country. By 18, he'd become a 6'4", power-hitting shortstop with an agile glove and rocket right arm. He then became the first Puerto Rican player ever to be drafted with the 1-1 pick. Many thought the Astros would take pitcher Mark Appel of Stanford, but Correa, still just 17, blew the Astros away in personal workouts. Then, through his first 3 years in Houston, Carlos posted a slugging percentage over 500, an OPS plus near 140, and at least 20 home runs a season, while throwing up elite defensive numbers at short and winning a Rookie of the Year in 2015. In 7 years with Houston cumulatively, he put up a WAR of 34.1. But with the emergence of Jeremy Pena at short and concerns about his spotty medical history, Correa would end up signing with the Twins in 2022, then opt out of that contract the next year to try free agency again, only to have mega deals with the Giants and Mets fall through because of separate concerns about a plate in Correa's ankle. So he returned to the Twins on a 6-year, $200 million deal, where he's been uneven, but still productive, putting up a WAR of 10.3 in his time there, including an impressive 3.6 during his first 75 games in 2024. Even if he's operating a bit under the radar at this point due to his lack of a real sexy attribute, he's never hit over 26 home runs in a season, for example. His current WAR of 44.4 certainly has him on a Hall of Fame trajectory if he can sway voters who might not want him for his involvement in the Astros sign-stealing scandal of 2017. However, it's hard imagining the 1-1 pick working out much better than this, so I'm also going to give him an A+. 2013, Mark Appel. Our run of insane Hall of Fame level talent ends here. Appel was everyone's 1-1 from the year before, but after Pittsburgh took him 8th overall, Appel opted to return to Stanford for one more season. Financially, it was the right move. He turned down $3.8 million to get $6.35 million from the Astros the following year. He was considered as polished as any college pitcher before him, but then something funny happened. He completely stalled out, unable to progress through the Astros system effectively, posting an ERA over 5 through his first 3 minor league seasons. In 2015, he was shipped to the Phillies as part of the package for Ken Giles, who would go on to be an important piece for Houston during that asterisk run in 2017. Elbow and shoulder injuries stymied Appel's career from here, and in 2015, he said he was taking a leave from baseball. But he wasn't done just yet. He ended up coming back and kept grinding, eventually making it to the majors for the first time in 2022, when he appeared in 6 games for the Phillies out of the bullpen, and posted an ERA of 1.74 in the process, over 10 innings with 5 Ks. He was released the next season, but the fact that he fought all the way back from being the consensus best pitcher in the draft for 2 straight years to complete and total bust, to eventually making his major league debut, was a welcome sight for any of the baseball romantics out there. Regardless, his lack of overall production can't be ignored here, as he actually posted the least amount of innings played among every player we've looked at so far today. As such, it would only be fair to give him a failing grade, our second F of the day so far. 2014, Brady Aiken. This was Houston's second straight miss with their pick, and it looked largely the same as the first. Aside from the fact that Brady was a high schooler, Houston was definitely taking chances. He was obviously younger than Appel, and had college in his back pocket if he didn't sign, meaning he could negotiate hard and then walk away if necessary. A post-draft medical exam revealed an elbow problem, so the Astros tried to lower his bonus, which Aiken rejected, and thus became the first 1-1 pick not to sign since 1983's Tim Belcher. In March 2015, Aiken underwent Tommy John surgery and was drafted 17th overall in that year's draft. He hasn't pitched professionally since 2019, making him the first player we've examined so far to not make the bigs in any capacity. This is an F as such, easily ranking as the worst overall pick so far. 2015, Dansby Swanson. The D-backs took a polished shortstop here in Swanson out of Vanderbilt, but then traded him to the Braves for Shelby Miller that same winter, before Swanson had ever put on a uniform for them. The trade ended up working out well for the Braves, as Swanson settled in as an everyday shortstop who had a great glove and solid enough offense for over half a decade, helping the Braves to go all the way in 2021. Miller was less successful for the D-backs. After making the All-Star team in 2022, Swanson hit the free agent market and signed with the Cubs for 7 years, $177 million. He has since produced 5.6 WAR over a season and a half, while dealing with his fair shares of ups and downs. Swanson has never been a middle-of-the-order master who can carry a team, but he's nonetheless always been a productive player, even if 2024 has been rough for him so far. This lands him at a B in my estimation, right below the likes of Upton or Strasburg. 2016, Mickey Moniak. This was a peculiar draft, one where all the first rounders pretty much failed to meet expectations, but the lower rounds contained the likes of Will Smith, Pete Alonso, Bo Bichette, Zach Gallen, Brian Reynolds, Corbin Burns, Shane Bieber, and Sean Murphy. In Moniak, the Phillies thought they were getting a future fixture in their outfield, a Gold Glove talent with 25-plus home run and 300-plus average upside with the bat. Instead, they got a decent defender who's never really gotten anything going at the plate outside of a run with the Angels in 2023 after he was traded to Anaheim for peanuts. His current career WAR? 0.5. Perhaps tellingly, pretty much everyone involved in the decision to draft Moniak has since been fired from the Phillies. In 2024, he's hitting .209 with a .587 OPS through his first 78 games. This is as close to a fail as you can get without crossing the threshold in my opinion, as Moniak has shown flashes of being a productive big leaguer, as he's even logged over 200 major league games so far. As such, I'm going to give this one a D-, with the hope that he can rebound from here. 2017, Royce Lewis. Many scratched their head when Lewis was picked first back in 2017 over prep arm Hunter Green, who flashed a 102-mile-per-hour heater with wipeout breaking stuff. And for a few years, it looked like the pick might not pan out, as Lewis dealt with an insane run of injury issues that kept him from making his MLB debut for over half a decade. However, since he played his first game in 2023, he's been a revelation for the Twins. Still just 25 years old, Lewis has hit 27 homers through his first 94 career games with an OPS of .945 and 4 WAR. When he's on the field, Lewis is probably one of the best players in the AL, ranking him among the game's elite in terms of expected batting average, xWOBA, and defensive range. Couple all that with an OPS plus near 160, and Lewis may very well become a perennial MVP candidate if he can manage to stay healthy consistently. As for grades from here on out, I want to break them into two categories: the player's current grade and their potential future grade, as everyone from 2017 on has had at the most a little more than 5 years in their career, meaning that things could very easily change for them in either a positive or negative direction. As such, I want to give Royce a current B+ rating, with an upside of A, as I don't see a Hall of Fame plaque in his future due to the injuries and relative late start, but I could totally see him being a star for years to come. 2018, Casey Mize. One of the most highly touted college arms in recent memory, Mize utilized a nasty splitter that became his calling card while at Auburn, and led him to being drafted 1-1 by the Tigers in 2018. By 2021, he had become a solid young starter in the bigs, posting an ERA of 3.71 while giving up just 7.8 hits per 9. On a bad Tigers team, he was one of the bright spots, but he tore his UCL early in 2022, missing all of 2023 rehabbing. He's returned in 2024, but has not been back to where he was stuff-wise, giving up 10.6 hits per 9 while striking out just 6.6. He throws hard with a fastball that averages 95.6 miles per hour, but his whiff rate is in the bottom 20% of baseball, as he's never really managed to develop that splitter into a consistent big league out pitch. He certainly has the talent to turn it around, but he'll have to show more from here to prove this wasn't a miss for Detroit. As such, he gets a current rating of C with an upside of B. 2019, Adley Rutschman. It's a rare thing when pretty much every scout agrees on who the first overall pick should be, as was the case in 2019 for Rutschman, a switch-hitting catcher with power and plus defensive potential. That kind of combo is very rare, one reason why catchers don't often get selected first overall. The last for Adley was the aforementioned Hall of Famer Mauer. In Adley, the O's got a catcher that has since thrown up a 128 career OPS plus in parts of 3 seasons behind the dish, while accumulating 12.9 WAR and 5.9 WAR per 162 games. What's crazy is that there are those out there who believe he still has yet another gear to reach with his bat, meaning if he continues to progress as he enters his late 20s, he's 26 now, we could perhaps witness levels of overall production out of a catcher that we haven't seen since Buster Posey won an MVP in 2012. Even if he doesn't achieve that from here on out, however, the O's still got themselves a generational talent who will anchor their team for years to come. I would say Adley is currently an A, with Hall of Fame upside in the same vein as a Posey or Mauer, at A+. 2020, Spencer Torkelson. When you nearly break the all-time home run record at Arizona State, you're walking among giants like Barry Bonds and Reggie Jackson. That was Spencer Torkelson, and the Tigers were convinced he'd slot into their lineup and provide loud contact sooner rather than later. But flash forward 4 years, and his career WAR is -1.7, before getting sent down recently, he was putting up an OPS under 600 with negative 1.2 WAR in 54 games. This, however, comes just a year after he hit 31 dingers. He's still just 24, so he does have time to rebound, but being as his advanced stats don't look as encouraging as what was once projected, it doesn't seem at this point like this pick is going to age all that well. I'm calling this a D+ as of now, with an upside of a C+. 2021, Henry Davis. This was a bit of a surprise pick considering Jackson Merrill, James Woods, and Andrew Painter were available, all who've gone on to post encouraging routes of maturation, with Wood even managing to reach number 1 on multiple prospect lists and Merrill being named an all-star in his rookie season. The Pirates instead took Davis out of Louisville, a catcher with 30 homer upside. So far, Davis has struggled at the plate, hitting just .197 as a big leaguer with 8 homers in 91 games, along with some pretty bad defense. Pirates probably aren't helping matters either, bringing him up and sending him back down over and over again, a yo-yoing that can easily disrupt a prospect's development. With him about to turn 25 and having posted incredible numbers on the farm, there remains a good deal of hope that he can reach his once lofty billing as a decent catcher with pop and a penchant for getting on base. As such, Davis here gets a D+ for now, with an upside of B-, though his stock will fall fast if he doesn't get his MLB struggles under control as he enters his mid-20s. 2022, Jackson Holliday. Like the Rays in 2008 and the Astros in 2014, the O's picked first right as their team was ready to reach dominant status. The Rays took Tim Beckham, the Astros took Brady Aiken, and the O's went with the son of former MLB great Matt Holliday, Jackson, who then cruised through the minors and made it to the O's in 2024 at the tender age of just 20. His was not a dominant start as he went 2 for 34 and then got demoted back to AAA, where he promptly then got hurt. Did the O's rush him? Perhaps a bit. He still managed to more than excel at AAA this year, however, putting up a slash of .272, .442, .471 before he got banged up. As still one of the top prospects in all of baseball at an extremely young age, Holliday certainly gets a favorable grade, landing at an A with an upside for A+ if you can put it all together. I know that may seem extreme, but how many other 20-year-olds are putting up nearly 450 OBPs at the highest level of the minors, with plus defensive and power upside as a middle infielder? 2023, Paul Skeens. Skeens was one of the highest rated players ever in any draft, making his selection at 1-1 as much of a lock as Strasburg's more than 10 years prior. And lo and behold, less than a year later, and Skeens has already established himself as one of the most dominant and marketable players in MLB, having literally just started for the NL in the All-Star game in his first year. Why, may you ask? Well, through his first 11 big league starts, he's gone 6-0 with an ERA of 1.90, while striking out over 12 per 9 innings with gas that can touch 102, and off-speed pitches that make seasoned veterans shake their heads. It's still far too early to put his head in a plaque, but based on how he's performed so far, he obviously gets an A+, with the potential to stay right there for years to come. 2024, Travis Bazzana. Listen, I don't feel at all qualified to give a take on this considering he was literally just drafted, so all I can really say is this wasn't seen as a stretch, and that Travis is considered to have true superstar upside as a second sacker after hitting 28 homers with a .407, .568, .911 slash at Oregon State last year. It'll be interesting to see how his pure hitting ability plays the next level, as well as where he'll end up long term since the Guardians already have Andres Jimenez up the middle, but for now, this seems like a solid pick, even if it is unrateable for me. So that was my review of every first overall pick since 2000. I hope you enjoyed the vid, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing as well as letting me know how you would rate any or all of these guys down in the comments. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.